The alien council chamber echoed with mocking laughter as they ridiculed the pathetic so-called humans, unaware that these hairless apes hailed from the legendary death world known as Earth. Captain Christian Henderson strode into the grand chamber, the representatives of various alien species murmuring and casting distrustful glances his way. He was used to their dismissive attitudes, viewing humans as primitive savages. But this time was different. This time the fate of the galaxy itself hung in the balance. The Council's insectoid leader, Nox of the Deltan race, called the meeting to order, his mandibles clicking with disdain. "Captain Henderson, it pains me to admit that you hairless apes are our only hope. A group of terrorists have stolen an ancient artifact, the Omicron Cube, which can manipulate matter itself. They plan to create a doomsday weapon to destroy entire star systems." Christian simply nodded, knowing the stakes. The alien council had no choice but to turn to the humans, whose unpredictable cunning had become legendary. Failure was not an option. Christian knew if he couldn't stop these terrorists, billions would perish, and the mocking laughter of the aliens would be replaced by the agonized screams of countless innocents. The weight of the galaxy itself rested on Christian's shoulders as he accepted the mission. He would show these arrogant aliens the true power and resolve of the human spirit, and if he failed, there wouldn't be anyone left to hear, "I told you so." Christian's eyes narrowed with determination as he strode out of the council chamber. The fate of countless lives depended on him now. He activated his comms. "Boom, boom, O'Connor, Nakamura, briefing room in 10. In the Stark briefing room, Christian laid out the details to his hand-picked team. Sergeant Mike Boom Boom Johnson, demo expert, cracked his knuckles, eager for action. The sly Lieutenant Liam O'Connor, infiltration specialist, ran a hand through his red hair, mind already scheming. Corporal Alex Nakamura, master hacker, adjusted her glasses, ready to crack any system. As they headed for the Shadowhawk, their state-of-the-art stealth ship, Nox cornered Christian in the corridor. The insectoid alien's compound eyes glinted as his mandibles clicked. "I must warn you, Captain. The Council may have given you this mission, but many of us still doubt your capabilities. Fail, and it will only confirm what we've always believed about your species." Christian met Nox's multifaceted gaze head-on, unflinching. "We'll get the job done, Counselor, and when we do, maybe you'll start to see humans in a different light." The Shadowhawk cut through the void of space, its human and alien tech allowing it to navigate the uncharted sectors. Christian watched the stars blur past on the view screen. Suddenly, an alarm blared. "Unidentified ship approaching," Nakamura called out. The vessel that dropped out of FTL was a menacing sight, bristling with illegal weapons. O'Connor grimaced. "That's the Nebula Viper, captained by the notorious Orcs brothers, space pirates." Nakamura's fingers flew over her console. "I'm in, scrambling their systems at now." The Nebula Viper's shots went wide. Christian grinned. "Boom, boom, fire!" The Flux missiles, a human invention, tore through the pirate ship's shields. Explosions rippled along its hull. "Target their engines and weapons," Christian ordered. "I want them disabled, not destroyed." With the pirates adrift and disarmed, Christian opened a channel. The snarling face of a Zorux filled the screen. Christian smirked. "Looks like you bit off more than you could chew. How about you tell us where you got those fancy guns and we let you limp away?" Faced with capture or cooperation, the pirates shared some interesting intel about a hidden outpost supplying the terrorist group. Christian logged the coordinates, then cut the comm. As the Shadowhawk continued its journey, a derelict spacecraft appeared on the sensors. "Could be a good place to scrounge for supplies," O'Connor mused. Christian nodded. "Take us in, but stay sharp. We don't know what we're walking into." The Shadowhawk drifted near the derelict ship, scanners probing its secrets. Suddenly, a garbled transmission cut through the static. "Under attack! Need assistance!" Christian frowned. The signal originated from a nearby planet off their charted course. Boom Boom shook his head. "We don't have time for a detour." But Christian had already made his choice. "We're the only ones out here. and if there's a chance we can help, we have to try. The planet's surface was a patchwork of dense jungles and craggy mountains. Smoke rose from a valley, guiding them to a small settlement. Alien structures lay in ruins, some still burning. A pack of creatures the size of hovercars circled the terrified colonists. Covered in mottled scales and spikes, with razor-fanged maws, these predators looked like they'd crawled out of a nightmare. "Take us in low," Christian ordered. "Boom Boom, grab the heavy ordnance." The Shadowhawk swooped over the snarling pack, pulse cannons spitting fire. The monsters scattered, some caught in the barrage. Christian and his team hit the ground running, Zephyrian survivors gaping at the strange newcomers. Boom Boom lobbed a plasma grenade, the detonation sending predators flying. One beast lunged at Christian. He rolled, combat knife flashing. The blade found the creature's throat, hot blood spraying. O'Connor and Nakamura lay down covering fire as the team fell back to the Zephyrians' defensive circle. The remaining predators, deciding this prey wasn't worth the trouble, slunk back into the jungle. Christian holstered his sidearm, turning to the wide-eyed aliens. Their skin shimmered with bioluminescent patterns, and they stood no taller than a human child. The boldest stepped forward, touching a glowing hand to its chest. "I am Kor-El. You saved our colony. We are in your debt." As the humans helped the Zephyrians rebuild, Kor-El shared a disturbing tale. A stranger, a dark figure wreathed in shadows, had visited them days ago, seeking an ancient power source. The description matched Zarkoth. Kor-El nodded. "A sacred place. Our legends say it holds a fragment of the life spark, the energy that flows through all living things. In the wrong hands, it could be devastating." A plan took shape in Christian's mind. "Kor-El, your people can manipulate energy, right?" At the alien's nod, he continued, "We could use your skills. Join us, and help stop Zarkoth before it's too late." Kor-El agreed without hesitation, eyes shining with purpose. The Shadowhawk blasted off, its crew now 5 strong. Christian opened a comm channel to the Galactic Council. Nox's hologram shimmered to life, mandibles clicking impatiently. "Captain, I trust you are en route to Zarkoth's base." Christian shook his head. "Negative, Counselor. We're following a new lead. Zarkoth is after something called the Life Spark. I believe it's connected to the Omnicron Cube." "With all due respect," Christian said, steel in his voice, "there's more going on here, and I intend to find out what." He cut the comm, ignoring Nox's sputtering protests. Christian gazed out at the stars streaking past, jaw set. Something told him this mission was about to take an unexpected turn, and he'd bet his life that the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The Shadowhawk drifted through the void, its hull pitted and scarred from the battles it had endured. Christian stared out at the stars, his mind racing. The Zephyrians' information about Zarkoth and the mysterious dark figure nagged at him. There was more to this mission than met the eye. He turned to Kor-El, the Zephyrian engineer. "Can you scan for any unusual energy signatures in the area, something that might be masked from standard sensors?" Kor-El's bioluminescent skin pulsed as his fingers danced over the console. "There's an anomaly in a nearby asteroid field. The readings are faint, but it could be a cloaked base." Christian nodded. "Take us in, nice and slow. Nakamura, see if you can slice through any jamming signals." The Shadowhawk glided into the asteroid field, its advanced scanners probing the tumbling rocks. Suddenly, a massive structure shimmered into view, nestled in the heart of a hollowed-out asteroid. They docked with the base, the Shadowhawk's camouflage systems blending it seamlessly with the asteroid's surface. Christian led the way as they slipped inside, weapons at the ready. The base's corridors were eerily quiet, the only sound the hum of machinery. Kor-El paused at a terminal, his fingertips glowing as he interfaced with the system. "I've accessed their database. This place belongs to a group called the Shadow Collective." Nakamura's eyes widened as she scanned the data. "They've been manipulating the Galactic Council for years, using something called the Omnicron Cube. And Zarkoth is just their pawn. The real mastermind is someone called the Overseer." Christian's grip tightened on his rifle. "We need to find out more about this Overseer and their plans for the cube." They delved deeper into the base, the weight of their discovery hanging over them. Suddenly alarms blared, red lights flashing. "Shit, we've been made!" Boom Boom yelled. Shadow Collective agents swarmed the corridors, energy weapons blazing. Christian and his team dove for cover, returning fire. They broke apart, bullets and plasma bolts filling the air. Christian and Corel sprinted down a side passage, a group of agents hot on their heels. Boom Boom kicked open a door, finding himself in an armory filled with advanced alien weaponry. "Oh, hell yes!" He grabbed a massive plasma cannon, its barrel glowing with destructive potential. O'Connor slipped into the base's control room, his infiltration skills allowing him to bypass the security. He plugged in a data drive, downloading everything he could about the Shadow Collective's operations. Christian and Corel ducked and weaved, the Zephyrians' energy manipulation abilities shorting out their pursuers' weapons. They burst into a hangar bay, the Shadowhawk waiting. Boom Boom appeared, his new toy laying waste to the Shadow Collective forces. O'Connor and Nakamura were close behind, data drive in hand. They piled into the Shadowhawk, engines roaring to life. As they blasted away from the base, Christian's mind raced with the implications of what they'd learned. The information they'd gathered could change everything. But if the Shadow Collective had infiltrated the Council, who could they trust? The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and Christian knew their mission had only just begun. The Shadowhawk streaked through hyperspace, its hull still bearing the scars of their narrow escape from the Shadow Collective base. Christian sat in the captain's chair, his eyes fixed on the data drive that held the key to unraveling the conspiracy threatening the galaxy. "We can't take this to the Council," Christian said, his voice heavy with concern. "Not until we know who we can trust." Christian plugged in a set of coordinates. "We're going to see an old friend, Colonel Jack Rogue Riley. If anyone can help us make sense of this mess, it's him." The Shadowhawk dropped out of hyperspace near a remote, uncharted moon. A battered old freighter, the Rusty Bucket, sat in orbit, waiting for them. Christian and his team docked with the freighter, stepping aboard to find Rogue waiting for them in the cargo hold. Rogue was a grizzled veteran, his face lined with scars and his eyes holding a lifetime of hard-earned wisdom. He clasped Christian's hand in a firm grip. "Hell of a mess you've stumbled into, kid." Christian handed him the data drive. "The Shadow Collective has infiltrated the Council. We need to know what's on this drive, but we can't risk it falling into the wrong hands." Rogue plugged the drive into a battered old console, his eyes scanning the data. He let out a low whistle. "This is big, Christian, bigger than you realize. You can't trust anyone in the Council with this." "Then what do we do?" O'Connor asked, his face grim. Rogue leaned back, stroking his chin. "There's a hacker, goes by the name of Ghost. They've exposed corruption at the highest levels. If anyone can verify this data and help you take down the Shadow Collective, it's them." Rogue shook his head. "Ghost is always on the move, paranoid as hell. Last I heard, they were holed up on a lawless space station called Neon City, but finding them won't be easy. You'll have to navigate the criminal underworld, deal with gangs and bounty hunters." Christian's jaw tightened. "We don't have a choice. The fate of the galaxy is at stake." The Shadowhawk blasted away from the Rusty Bucket, setting course for Neon City. As they approached the seedy space station, a sense of unease settled over the crew. Neon signs flickered and pulsed, casting garish colors across the grimy, pitted hull. They docked in a shadowy bay, the air thick with the stench of fuel and the musk of alien bodies. Eyes followed them as they made their way through the winding, trash-strewn corridors. Suddenly, a group of heavily armed thugs stepped out of the shadows, blocking their path. The leader, a hulking brute with a cybernetic eye, sneered at them. "Well, what do we have here? A bunch of humans sticking their noses where they don't belong." The gang leader laughed, a harsh grating sound. "Trouble's already found you, boy. This is our turf, and we don't take kindly to outsiders." Boom Boom hefted his plasma cannon, a grin spreading across his face. "Well, we don't take kindly to being threatened, so how about you step aside before things get messy?" The thugs raised their weapons, fingers tightening on triggers. Christian and his team tensed, ready for a fight. Suddenly, a figure dropped from the rafters, landing in the middle of the standoff. It was a lithe, hooded figure, their face obscured by a high-tech mask. "Enough," the figure said, their voice distorted. "These humans are under my protection." The gang leader snarled, "Stay out of this, Ghost. This isn't your business." Ghost tilted their head. "Oh, but it is. You see, I know why they're here, and trust me, you don't want to interfere." The thugs hesitated, glancing at each other uncertainly. Ghost took a step forward, a glowing blade materializing in their hand. "Last chance. Walk away." The gang leader spat on the ground, then gestured for his men to lower their weapons. They slunk back into the shadows, glaring at Christian and his team. Ghost turned to face them, sheathing their blade. "Captain Henderson, I've been expecting you." Christian frowned. "How do you know who I am?" Ghost tapped the side of their mask. "I know many things, like the data you carry and the danger it represents." They gestured for the team to follow. "Come with me. We have much to discuss." Ghost led them to a hidden safe house, a cramped room filled with glowing consoles and humming servers. They plugged the data drive into their system, their fingers flying across the keys as they decrypted the stolen files. As the data scrolled across the screens, Ghost's shoulders tensed. "This is worse than I feared. The Shadow Collective's influence runs deep, far beyond the Council." Christian leaned in, his eyes scanning the data. "What are they after? What's their endgame?" Ghost turned to face him, their mask glinting in the dim light. "Total domination. The Omicron Cube is just the beginning. With its power, they plan to subjugate the entire galaxy, bending every race to their will." Ghost turned to face him, their voice heavy with concern. "There's a traitor among you, Captain. Someone has been feeding the Shadow Collective information about your every move." The team looked at each other, shock and disbelief etched on their faces. Christian's mind raced, trying to process this new revelation. Who among them could be the traitor? And how much did the Shadow Collective already know about their plans? The walls of the safe house suddenly felt claustrophobic, the air heavy with tension and suspicion. Christian knew that they had to act fast, to root out the traitor before it was too late. But with the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance, and enemies closing in from all sides, he couldn't help but wonder if they were already too late. Christian's heart raced as the weight of Ghost's revelation sank in. A traitor among them, feeding information to the Shadow Collective. The thought made his blood run cold. He turned to his team, his eyes hardening with resolve. "We can't let this slow us down. The fate of the galaxy is at stake." The team exchanged uneasy glances, the trust they'd built strained by the looming specter of betrayal. Christian laid out the plan. "We split up. Kor-El and I will infiltrate Zarkoth's stronghold and recover the Omicron Cube. The rest of you, work with Ghost to expose the Shadow Collective's plot to the galaxy." Kor-El nodded, his bioluminescent skin pulsing with determination. "I'm with you, Captain." As they prepared to depart, Christian pulled O'Connor aside. "Keep an eye on the others. If the traitor makes a move..." Christian and Kor-El boarded a small stealthy shuttle, the Phantom, and set course for Zarkoth's base. They navigated through a treacherous asteroid field, the Phantom's agile frame weaving between the tumbling rocks. Suddenly, a massive asteroid loomed before them, bristling with gun turrets. "A hidden space station," Kor-El breathed. They docked under the cover of a hacked security code, slipping into the station's depths. Genetically engineered alien predators stalked the halls, their hides at home in the sterile corridors. Christian and Kor-El moved silently, evading patrols and security systems. Kor-El interfaced with a terminal, his fingertips glowing. "The Omicron Cube is in the central lab." They forged ahead, their skills and wits tested at every turn. A close call with a predator pack left them battered but unbroken, their bond deepening through shared adversity. Christian cursed. "We've been made. Move." They burst into the lab, Zarkoth's surprised face greeting them. Christian aimed his rifle. "Step away from the cube, Doctor." Zarkoth sneered, his hand hovering over a control panel. "You're too late, human." The cube's power is mine to command. Christian fired, the shot grazing Zarkoth's arm. The doctor howled, slamming his fist on the panel. The room plunged into darkness, emergency lights casting an eerie glow. "Christian!" Corell shouted. "The predators!" A pack of snarling beasts poured into the lab, their eyes glinting with hunger. Christian and Corell fought back to back, plasma fire illuminating the room in strobing flashes. Corell's energy manipulation shorted out the predators' bioengineered enhancements, leveling the playing field. Christian grappled with Zarkoth, the two men locked in a desperate struggle for the cube. With a final wrenching effort, Christian pried the cube from Zarkoth's grasp. The doctor slumped to the floor, defeated. Christian and Corell stood amidst the carnage, the Omnicron cube pulsing in Christian's hand. They'd won, but at what cost? Light years away, Ghost and the team watched as the Shadow Collective's network crumbled, the truth of their misdeeds laid bare for all to see. Chaos erupted across the galaxy as the conspiracy unraveled, high-ranking officials and influential figures exposed as puppets of the collective. As they fled, a figure emerged from the smoke. Mike Boom Boom Johnson, Christian's best friend, stood before them, a detonator in his hand. Mike's face was a mask of anguish. "I'm sorry, they have my family. I didn't have a choice." The truth hit like a sledgehammer. The traitor revealed at last. Christian's best friend turned against them. Christian's comm crackled to life, O'Connor's voice urgent. "Captain, we have a situation. It's Boom Boom. He's the traitor." Christian's heart sank, the weight of his friend's betrayal a physical blow. He closed his eyes, his mind racing. He thought of the battles they'd fought, the bonds they'd forged. The man who'd always had his back now holding a detonator, threatening everything they'd worked for. Christian took a deep breath, his decision made. He opened his eyes, his gaze locking with Corell's. "Boom Boom is still one of us," he said, his voice steady. "We'll give him a chance to make this right." Corell nodded, trusting in Christian's judgment. They set course for the safe house, the Omnicron cube secured, a reckoning awaiting them. The stakes had never been higher, the betrayal never more personal. But Christian knew that even in the darkest of times there was always a chance for redemption. He just hoped that chance hadn't passed them by. "You'll have to earn back our trust, Boom Boom," Christian said, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. "Liam, Alex, keep an eye on him. If he tries anything—" Liam and Alex nodded, their faces grim. They understood the gravity of the situation. The knife's edge they walked between salvation and damnation. Christian turned to Corell, the Zephyrian's bioluminescent skin pulsing with determination. "We have a mission to complete. Let's go." The Shadowhawk sliced through the void, its stealth systems engaged as they neared Zarkoth's stronghold. Christian's grip tightened on the controls, his mind racing with the challenges that lay ahead. Suddenly, a massive alien warship shimmered into view, dwarfing the Shadowhawk. Its hull bristled with advanced weaponry, a testament to the Shadow Collective's technological might. A holoscreen flickered to life, revealing a figure cloaked in shadows. "Captain Henderson," the voice rasped, dripping with malice. "I am the Overseer. Surrender now or face the consequences." The Shadowhawk drifted, dead in space, as the Overseer's ship loomed above them. Christian's mind raced, desperately seeking a way out. The Overseer's image flickered back to life. "I have someone you care about, Captain. Surrender or he dies." "You have 1 hour," the Overseer said, his voice cold as the void. "Make your choice." The screen went dark, leaving Christian and Corell in stunned silence. The weight of the impossible decision pressed down on Christian, threatening to crush him. But in that moment, a spark of defiance ignited within him. He was human, a child of Earth, and he would not bow to fear or tyranny. "Corell," Christian said, his voice low and urgent, "can you create a diversion, something to blind their senses?" The Zephyrian nodded, his skin glowing brighter. "I can overload their systems with an energy pulse, but it will only last a few moments." Christian's mind raced, a plan taking shape. "That's all we need. We'll use the pulse to board the ship undetected. Once inside, we split up. You find the Omicron cube, I'll get Rogue. Kor-El's face was grim, but he nodded. Understood, Captain. They worked quickly, rigging the Shadowhawk systems to emit the energy pulse. As the Overseer's ship drew closer, Christian's heart pounded in his chest, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Now!" he shouted, slamming his fist on the console. The pulse erupted from the Shadowhawk, a blinding flash of light that engulfed the Overseer's ship. Its sensors blinded, the ship's defenses faltered for a crucial moment. Christian and Kor-El launched themselves from the airlock, propelled by their suit's thrusters. They slammed into the Overseer's hull, magnetic clamps locking them in place. Kor-El's fingertips glowed as he interfaced with the ship's systems, the airlock sliding open with a hiss. They slipped inside, the shadows enveloping them. "Find the cube," Christian said, his voice tight with urgency. "I'll get Rogue. Stay in contact." Kor-El nodded, his face set with determination. They split up, each racing towards their objective, the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. Christian moved through the ship's corridors, his senses heightened, his body coiled with tension. He followed the schematics Kor-El had pulled from the ship's systems, navigating the labyrinthine passages towards the holding cells. As he rounded a corner, he froze, his heart leaping into his throat. Rogue lay slumped against the wall of a cell, his face a mess of bruises and blood. Christian rushed forward, his hands shaking as he worked to open the cell. "Rogue," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I'm here, I'm getting you out." Rogue stirred, his eyes fluttering open. "Christian," he rasped, his voice weak, "you shouldn't have come, it's a trap." Christian's eyes narrowed, his grip tightening on his weapon. "Let him go, you son of a bitch." The Overseer laughed, a cold, cruel sound. "Oh, I don't think so. You see, I need you, Captain. You and that fascinating Zephyrian friend of yours." Christian's heart raced, his mind whirling with possibilities. He had to buy time, had to give Kor-El a chance to find the cube. "Why us?" he asked, his voice steady. "What do you want?" The Overseer's smile widened. "You humans are so predictable. Always so noble, so self-sacrificing, it's almost too easy." He stepped forward, his movements fluid, almost reptilian. "But you, Captain, you're different. You have a fire within you, a stubborn refusal to accept defeat. It's admirable, really." Christian's jaw clenched, his finger tightening on the trigger. "Enough games, what do you want?" The Overseer's face hardened, his eyes glinting with malice. "I want the Omicron cube, and I want you to help me use it. Together we could rule the galaxy, reshape it in our image." Christian's lips curled in disgust. "Go to hell!" The Overseer's hand shot out, faster than Christian could react. He felt a searing pain in his chest, his weapon clattering to the floor. Christian felt his strength fading, his vision blurring. He thought of his team, of the countless lives depending on him. He couldn't fail, not now. With a roar of defiance, Christian surged forward, his fist slamming into the Overseer's face. The alien staggered back, surprise flashing across his features. Christian pressed his advantage, his body moving on instinct, years of training taking over. He ducked and weaved, his fists and feet striking with brutal precision. But the Overseer was fast, his body enhanced by alien technology. He countered Christian's blows, his own attacks leaving Christian reeling. They traded blows in a deadly dance, the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. Christian felt his strength waning, his body battered and bruised. Suddenly the ship shuddered, alarms blaring. Christian's heart leapt, hope surging through him. Kor-El. Christian felt a grim smile tug at his lips. "Looks like you underestimated us, Overseer." The ship lurched again, sparks flying from overloaded systems. Christian staggered, fighting to keep his balance. The Overseer let out a roar of rage, lunging at Christian with murderous intent. Christian met him head-on, their bodies slamming together in a brutal collision. They grappled, each seeking to gain the upper hand. Christian felt his strength fading, his vision dimming at the edges. But in that moment he saw Rogue, struggling to rise from the floor. He saw Kor-El risking everything to keep the Omnicron cube out of the Overseer's hands. And he saw his team, his friends, fighting with everything they had to save the galaxy. With a final, desperate surge of strength, Christian broke free of the Overseer's grip. His hand closed around a jagged piece of metal, torn free in the chaos. He drove it into the Overseer's chest, the alien's eyes widening in shock and pain. The Overseer staggered back, his hand clutching at the wound. "Hurt," he gasped, his voice bubbling with blood. "You've doomed us all." Christian stared him down, his eyes hard as steel. "No, we've saved us all." The ship shuddered again, the hull groaning under the strain. Christian turned to Rogue, helping him to his feet. As if on cue, the Zephyrian's voice crackled over the comm. "Christian, I have the cube, but I'm pinned down. Zarkoth and his men—" Christian's jaw tightened. "Hold on, Kor-El, we're coming." He turned to Rogue, the older man's face etched with pain and determination. "Can you walk?" Rogue nodded, his eyes gleaming with fierce pride. "Lead the way, Captain." Together, they raced through the ship's corridors, the deck buckling beneath their feet. They found Kor-El in the cargo hold, the Zephyrian crouched behind a crate, the Omnicron cube clutched to his chest. Zarkoth and his soldiers lay scattered around the hold, the Shadow Collective's finest warriors, no match for Kor-El's energy manipulation. "We have to get out of here," he shouted, his voice barely audible over the roar of escaping air. Kor-El nodded, his skin pulsing with exertion. "The escape pods." They stumbled towards the pods, the ship shaking itself to pieces around them. Christian shoved Rogue and Kor-El into a pod, his eyes meeting theirs for a brief, eternal moment. "Go," he said, his voice cracking. "Get the cube to safety. I'll be right behind you." Rogue's eyes widened, understanding dawning on his face. "Christian, no—" But Christian was already slamming the pod's door shut, his hand hovering over the launch button. He met Rogue's gaze through the viewport, a lifetime of unsaid words passing between them. "Tell the others—" Christian's voice caught, emotion threatening to overwhelm him. "Tell them I'm sorry, and tell them I'm proud of them." Rogue nodded, his eyes glistening with tears. "I will, Christian, thank you." Christian hit the launch button, the pod blasting away from the ship. He watched it go, a sense of peace settling over him. He turned back to the ship, the Overseer's body lying broken on the deck. The Omnicron cube was safe, his team was safe. He had done his duty. As the ship plunged towards the star, the heat building to unbearable levels, Christian closed his eyes. He thought of Earth, of the countless worlds he had fought to protect. And as the ship disintegrated around him, he smiled. For in that moment he knew that his sacrifice had not been in vain. The galaxy would remember the name Christian Henderson, the human who had given everything to save them all. Christian reeled from the Overseer's revelation, his mind racing as he processed the true scope of the threat they faced. The Void Sovereign, an ancient and malevolent entity from another dimension, sought to use the Omnicron cube to tear open a rift between realities, unleashing its army of nightmarish creatures upon the galaxy. The ship shuddered violently, alarms blaring as it hurtled towards the star. Christian knew he had to make a choice, and fast. He could save Rogue and escape, leaving the Omnicron cube to be consumed by the star's intense gravity along with the Void Sovereign's plans. Or he could stay behind, ensuring the cube's destruction, but sacrificing himself in the process. In that split second, Christian made his decision. He turned to Kor-El, his eyes blazing with determination. "Get Rogue to the escape pods. I'll hold off the Overseer and his minions." Kor-El hesitated, torn between his loyalty to Christian and his duty to complete the mission. "But Christian, you can't—" "Go," Christian shouted, his voice leaving no room for argument. "There's no time." Kor-El nodded, his bioluminescent skin pulsing with emotion. He focused his energy manipulation abilities, creating a shimmering force field around himself and Rogue. As the field stabilized, Kor-El guided the barely conscious Rogue towards the escape pods, the protective barrier deflecting debris and enemy fire. Christian turned back to the Overseer, who had regained his footing and now stood flanked by a group of heavily armed Shadow Collective soldiers. The deck bucked beneath their feet as the ship's hull began to disintegrate, the star's scorching heat seeping through the weakening shields. "You're a fool, Captain," the Overseer sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. "Do you really think you can stop the Void Sovereign? You're nothing but a mere human, a speck of dust in the grand scheme of things." Christian smiled grimly, his grip tightening on his weapon. "You're right, I am human, and that's exactly why I'll stop you." He charged forward, firing his weapon with deadly precision. The Shadow Collective soldiers fell one by one, their armor no match for Christian's unwavering aim. The Overseer snarled, his own weapon spitting plasma bolts as he engaged Christian in a brutal hand-to-hand combat. They traded blows, each strike fueled by desperation and determination. Christian felt his strength waning, his body battered and bruised from the relentless onslaught. But he refused to give up, drawing on every ounce of his courage and resilience to keep fighting. In a final, desperate move, Christian lunged at the Overseer, grappling with him for control of the ship's navigation system. The console sparked and sputtered as they struggled, the ship's course becoming increasingly erratic. With a roar of defiance, Christian slammed his fist into the console, destroying the navigation controls. The ship lurched, its trajectory now locked on a collision course with the star. The Overseer howled in rage, realizing that his plans had been thwarted. Christian stumbled back, his vision blurring as the ship's hull began to buckle under the immense gravitational forces. He activated his comlink, his voice hoarse but steady as he addressed his team. "Kor-El, Rogue, if you can hear me. I'm sorry, I had to do this. The Omicron Cube, the Void Sovereign's plans, they end here, but the fight against the Shadow Collective, against the darkness that threatens our galaxy, that fight is just beginning." He paused, his heart heavy with the weight of his sacrifice. "Carry on, my friends. Never give up hope, no matter how dark things may seem. Remember, we are human, and that means we never stop fighting for what's right." As the comlink faded, Christian closed his eyes, a sense of peace washing over him. He had made his choice, and he knew it was the right one. The ship plummeted towards the star, the intense heat and radiation consuming everything in its path. And in those final moments, as the blinding light of the star enveloped him, Christian held onto the hope that his sacrifice would not be in vain, that his team would carry on the fight and protect the galaxy from the evils that threatened it, for he knew that even in the face of unimaginable darkness the human spirit would always find a way to shine through. As the Overseer's ship disintegrated in the star's searing embrace, Kor-El and Rogue tumbled through the void in their escape pod. The blinding light of the star filled the viewport, a testament to Christian's sacrifice. Rogue, still battered and weak, managed a pained smile. "He did it, that crazy son of a bitch. He saved us all." Kor-El, his luminescent skin pulsing with a mix of grief and hope, nodded solemnly. "And we will make sure his sacrifice was not in vain." Suddenly a familiar shape emerged from the stellar glare, the Shadowhawk. The sleek vessel pulled alongside the escape pod, its airlock hissing open. Liam and Alex, their faces etched with relief and sorrow, helped Kor-El and Rogue aboard. In the Shadowhawk's cargo hold, Mike stood waiting, his eyes downcast. He stepped forward, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm sorry for everything. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I swear on Christian's memory, I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." Liam clapped a hand on Mike's shoulder. "We've all made mistakes, mate. What matters now is that we stand together for Christian and for the galaxy." As the Shadowhawk set course for the Galactic Council's headquarters, the team gathered in the briefing room, their hearts heavy with loss and purpose. Alex, her eyes red-rimmed but determined, spoke first. "We have to finish what Christian started. We have to stop the Void Sovereign and its minions, no matter the cost." Kor-El nodded, his voice resonating with quiet strength. "And we will, but we cannot do it alone. We must rally the Council, unite the galaxy against this threat." At the Council chambers, the team presented their evidence, laid bare the Shadow Collective's insidious plot, and the looming spectre of the Void Sovereign. Species that had long harbored mistrust and animosity towards one another now stood united in the face of annihilation. In a moment that would be remembered for generations, the Galactic Council put aside their differences and forged an unprecedented alliance, the Galactic Alliance, a bastion of hope against the encroaching darkness. As the Alliance mobilized its forces, Ghost, ever the master of secrets, uncovered a glimmer of hope amidst the gathering storm. A faint signal, emanating from the very star where Christian had made his final stand. The team, their spirits lifted by the possibility that their leader might still live, prepared for their most daring mission yet. They would brave the star's fury, plunge headlong into the unknown, all for the chance to bring Christian home. But even as they readied themselves for the rescue, the Void Sovereign's malevolent influence spread like a cancer through the stars. Its most fearsome agents, the Shadow Wraiths, slithered through the Alliance's ranks, sowing doubt and discord, weakening the fragile bonds of unity. It was on the fringes of a dying star system that the team encountered a pack of these nightmarish beings. The Shadow Wraiths, their forms cloaked in writhing shadows, descended upon the Shadowhawk with ruthless precision. In the heart of the battle, Mike, his eyes blazing with righteous fury, leapt into the fray. He fought with the strength of a man redeemed, his every blow a testament to his unwavering loyalty. But the Wraiths were relentless, their numbers seemingly endless. As his teammates fought on, Mike saw an opportunity, a chance to turn the tide. With a roar of defiance, he charged into the midst of the Wraiths, drawing their fire, buying his friends precious seconds to regroup. In a blinding flash of self-sacrifice, Mike detonated a cache of explosives, engulfing himself and a swath of Wraiths in a maelstrom of fire and shrapnel. The team, their hearts rent by yet another loss, fought on with renewed determination, the memory of Mike's bravery fueling their every step. As the last of the Wraiths fell, the team gathered in silent tribute to their fallen comrade. They knew that the road ahead would be fraught with peril and pain, that the Void Sovereign's wrath would only grow more terrible. But they also knew that they would face it together, united in their grief, their love, and their unwavering resolve to protect the galaxy they called home, for Christian, for Mike, for all those who had given their lives in the fight against the darkness. They would press on ever forward into the very heart of the void. The signal from the star grew stronger, a beacon of hope amidst the shadows. The team exchanged glances, their eyes alight with a fierce, unshakable determination. They knew deep in their bones that Christian was out there waiting for them. And they would find him no matter the cost, for in the face of the Void Sovereign's malevolence, they had found something far more powerful, far more enduring, the unbreakable bonds of friendship, of love, of sacrifice. It was these bonds that would carry them through the trials to come, these bonds that would light their way in the darkness, and with each step, each battle, each breath, they knew that they were not alone, that they would never be alone. For they were more than a team, more than friends. They were a family, forged in the crucible of war, tempered by the fires of adversity, and together they would stand against the void, a beacon of hope for a galaxy on the brink. The Shadowhawk plunged into the stellar maelstrom, its shield straining against the star's furious might. The team, their eyes fixed on the sensors, searched desperately for any sign of their lost leader. Suddenly a blip appeared on the screen, a faint flickering light amidst the stellar chaos. Kor-El, his fingers flying across the console, locked onto the signal, his heart pounding with a fierce, desperate hope. "It's him," he whispered, his voice trembling with emotion. "It's Christian." The Shadowhawk shuddered as it plunged into the heart of the star, the cosmic maelstrom threatening to tear the ship apart. Liam fought to keep the vessel steady, his hands flying over the controls. "The signal's getting stronger," Kor-El shouted over the roar of the stellar winds. "We're close." Suddenly the ship lurched, the viewscreen filling with a blinding flash of light. As their vision cleared, the team found themselves in a strange, ethereal realm, a pocket dimension of swirling energy and shifting colors. And there, floating at the center of the chaos, was Christian. The team watched in awe as Kor-El reached out with his energy manipulation abilities, his bioluminescent skin pulsing with intense concentration. Tendrils of light snaked from his fingertips, wrapping around Christian's motionless form. "I've got him," Kor-El cried, his voice strained with effort. "But something's wrong. His consciousness is tethered to the Omnicron Cube's energy." With a final, desperate surge of power, Kor-El severed the connection, pulling Christian free from his ethereal prison. But as he did so, a massive shockwave erupted from the point of separation, the force of the blast sending the team crashing to the deck. Alarms blared as the pocket dimension began to collapse around them, the Shadowhawk's hull groaning under the strain. Liam wrenched the ship into a sharp ascent, narrowly avoiding a cascading wave of unstable energy. But even as they escaped the crumbling realm, a new horror emerged. A massive portal ripped open in the fabric of space, a swirling vortex of darkness and malevolence. The Void Sovereign, freed from its ancient prison, surged into the physical universe, its nightmarish form blotting out the stars. Across the galaxy, the Void Sovereign's armies poured forth from the rift, a tide of shadow and fear that crashed against the defenses of the Galactic Alliance. Planets burned, entire civilizations screaming their last as the hordes of shadow beasts tore through their ranks. On the bridge of the Shadowhawk, Christian stirred, his eyes flickering open. He took in the chaos unfolding on the view screens, the weight of understanding settling heavily upon him. "The Void Sovereign," he whispered, his voice hoarse with exhaustion. "We have to stop it." He pushed himself to his feet, ignoring the protests of his battered body. The team gathered around him, their faces etched with grim determination. "We'll stand with you," Liam said, clasping Christian's shoulder, "until the end." Christian nodded, a flicker of hope kindling in his eyes. He turned to the view screen, watching as the Galactic Alliance's ships rallied around them, a ragtag fleet of vessels from 100 different worlds. "This is it," he said, his voice ringing with quiet conviction. "The final stand. We fight not just for ourselves, but for every living being in the galaxy. We fight for the future." The Shadowhawk surged forward, leading the charge as the Allied fleet clashed with the Void Sovereign's forces. Plasma fire lit the void, ships exploding in bursts of silent flame. Christian and his team fought their way through the chaos, carving a path towards the heart of the Shadow Army. Hordes of nightmarish beasts swarmed the Shadowhawk, their claws raking against the ship's hull. On the surface of a shattered moon, Christian and the Void Sovereign met in final combat. The entity towered over him, a colossus of darkness and malice, its form writhing with the essence of pure evil. Christian, his body wreathed in the remnants of the Omnicron Cube's power, lashed out with blasts of searing light. The Void Sovereign reeled, its shadowy form flickering and fraying at the edges. But the entity was too strong, its power too vast. It surged forward, engulfing Christian in a tide of darkness. He felt his strength failing, his light dimming against the onslaught. In that moment, Christian saw the faces of his fallen comrades, the sacrifices they had made to bring them to this point. He saw the countless lives hanging in the balance, the future of the galaxy resting on the outcome of this battle. With a final defiant roar, Christian unleashed the full might of the Omnicron Cube's energy, pouring every ounce of his being into one last desperate attack. The Void Sovereign screamed, its form shattering under the onslaught. Christian felt the entity's essence being dragged back through the portal, the rift sealing behind it with a blinding flash of light. But the victory had come at a terrible cost. As the light faded, Christian collapsed to the ground, his body broken and lifeless. The Omnicron Cube's energy faded, its power spent in the final cataclysmic surge. Across the galaxy, the Shadow armies crumbled, their forms dissolving into motes of darkness. The Galactic Alliance had won, but the price had been high. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy began to rebuild, the shattered pieces of the Alliance slowly coming back together. The team, now hailed as heroes, led the charge, their mission clear. They would hunt down the last remnants of the Shadow Collective, ensure that nothing like this could ever happen again. They would honor the memory of their fallen comrades, carrying on the fight in their name. But even as they looked to the future, they carried the scars of the past. The wounds inflicted by the Void Sovereign would linger, shaping the course of the galaxy for generations to come. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.